Good morning, YouTube members. We've got an update to share with you and it's come by your request, so thank you for that feedback. You've asked for some sort of volume analysis. So we've got a huge filter to be able to look at all the top momentum companies on the ASX, list them and rank them on a daily basis, which happens at about 2 o'clock, 2:30, depending on how long the computers take to crunch the numbers. What we want to do is try and find a company that looks like this. So we see a massive breakout, huge volume, and we want to identify the companies that have had those big volume breakouts. Let's see how we find them. So we're used to this screen. You log in, you use your password, and then you get the screen. We get this window. You've asked, so you can do exactly what's on screen here. Have a larger window on the left, and then your chart possibly on the right, like I've got right now. So let's have a look and see the full tab, which is the one where we've added the volume profile. We'll be scrolling across to the right. And you'll see there's a new column here, relative volume in the 10-day moving average. Let's make that one full screen so we can just really understand what we're looking at here. We update the dates to Friday. I'm recording this before open, so this is Friday's data, is the most recent. Happy days. Closing price, I trade over 50 cents. I don't mind how high the share price goes. Momentum score, we can change it down to 0 if you like. Data shows normally 5 or 6 is a good baseline probability for a higher return, but this opens it up. 150, well, that's the highest we've seen in 5 years. So it should capture anything reasonable. Launchpad count. I want to have seen it on the launchpad within the last 30 days. We can make it rank 30 if we like. You can change it to 0, 500, whatever you want. Lowest calls rank. I prefer calls. I like to see tight compressions. I don't like them wide and loose like Kalamagi talks about. Loose is for losers. I prefer to see them tight. So if they've had a coil within the last 5 days, that really helps filtering for me. Quarterly RSI. A lot of people asked, look, how does this compare to IBD? Okay, great. We made you one that's very similar to it. It's normalized. We lose a lot of information, but that's what you like to do when you filter and trade the top 10%. You can filter for that. 99.93 would be the highest, but we can make it 99.99. That makes it easier. Now, we've filtered this on so that we can only see companies that are within 2% of the 63-day high. That's a quarter. Within 2% of the quarterly high. Gary's talking about 52-week highs, quarterly breakouts, monthly breakouts, B waves, that kind of thing. If we see it push through a quarterly high with volume, possibly a pocket pivot, a VCP, episodic pivot, that's what we want to be identifying. So this volume filter really helps us narrow down on that. So what do we see? We've got them ranked here. So you can just click if you want to rank them by the quarterly RSI. There you go. You're going to see that's the highest score. But we want to focus on the volume. So the volume up until about 2 o'clock, how does that compare to the last 10 days? Well, 496%, 411%, 378%. They sound very explosive and sounds like there's a lot of interest in that company. Reporting season, we see a lot of it. So what are the companies? Let's take this out of full screen and toggle over to the charts. NGI, what does that look like? All right, we're definitely at quarterly highs. We're possibly at 52-week highs, looks like it. A cup and handle coming from the February high down to a May low, rallying back up to where we are now. The start of August didn't quite reach 52-week highs, created a bit of a sideways shimmy, a coil, a compression, which is what we want to see, and a bit of a handle. And broke out yesterday, good solid volume, possibly the highest volume in the last 12 months. And it did it on a good solid candle. So from a Wyckoff perspective, a solid chart. Cup and handle breakout, B wave breakout, all looking very positive, 52-week highs. I'd love to see this as a coil. That's really the type of tight compression I want to see. So I get a good risk-reward ratio when I take the trade, a tight stop. How did it show? Well, it didn't actually have a coils rank within the last 5 days. Why? NGI, I'm going to say it didn't meet our volume turnover for those days. So there was tighter volume coming into it, and there's coil compression. So that's NGI, rank number 1 for the volume breakout. ALD, next in line, explosive volume, that makes sense. Most likely reporting yesterday, or Friday I should say. And we've seen a gap up, so episodic pivot, and look, on the 18th, that's this morning, they've got even more news. So they traded into it. Okay, so a fair bit of news into Friday, but also into reporting this morning. Be an interesting digestion there. So big solid volume, gap up, bit of a coil and compression, and then pops solid. That's exactly what we want to be seeing. How was it on the coils? It ranked 21 at one point within the last 5 days. That makes sense because it's had this sort of a VCP, a big one. We've had a couple of months down into the April lows, rallied out, had a high into May, travelled sideways, corrective in time, came down to a low into June, and then started rallying back up. Broke over that B wave, but didn't do it with much gusto, not huge volume. Let's zoom in. Didn't have huge volume conviction on the breakout, so that's why the first contraction with the big drop down rally, completed the second contraction with sort of a failed breakout, didn't follow through with gusto. And then the third contraction is really tight and sideways compression. Did have a big volume day here in the middle, but we got a coil and these tight volumes here, and it's popped up. So that's what we want to be filtering for, ALD. And third in line, baby bunting, BBN, that's the one we started with. Huge volume, huge rally, good report. How was the news? Probably very positive. Episodic pivot. And again, it did coil and compression into these days here before it popped and broke out. What did that look like? It ranked 19th for the coils at some point within the last 5 days. It had been in the launch pad once in the last 30 calendar days, so possibly one of these days in here. We could look back for a bit more detail. It is over the 50-day moving average. It was within 2% of the 63-day high, the quarter. Yeah, well, it was creating new highs as it went for the quarter. And didn't quite get the 3-day moving average compression. So there was a bit of too much dispersion. If we zoom in here, we're going to see these 3 lines. I used the 200-day, but the 10, the 20, and the 50, we'd seen them moving up. So that had already broken out of it. And it had a relative quarter score into the close yesterday, 97.7. So what Calamagi's after. And that volume profile, 378% above the average. Yeah, I can definitely see that. And that was by 2 o'clock. There was still more trading to go. So that's a new addition that we've added for you. Hope that works. Thank you for the feedback, and get working with it. If you need more explanation, you want more feedback on the level 2, the filters and so on, just keep sending those comments and messages, and thank you.